Okay, what's up, guys? So, at the beginning of the week, I put out a short that was discussing that my first series I wanted to go in and talk about some of these East Tennessee drug recovery ministries that have popped up. And so, I'll get into the reason why that was even put on my heart. So, about a week ago, week and a half ago, a few weeks ago, I seen a few videos that come out that Todd White, is a fraud. Todd White this, Todd White that. And I went to church with a lot of people who were big Todd White fans. They always watched his sermons. They said they met the man, yada, yada, yada. My wife even, was a pretty big fan of his. She always said, "Oh, wow, this is a strong, powerful man of God, yada, yada, yada. Look at what he's doing, blah, blah, blah." And I think that it is very, very important to come out and put your foot down against false teachers and people that make Christians and the faith look bad. That is, in my opinion, that is the true definition when people say taking Jesus' name in vain, taking the Lord's name in vain. That's the true definition of that to me. Now, I may be wrong. I'm no scholar, theologian, nothing like that. So don't act like what I say is gold, and don't take it to heart. I've done a couple years of Bible college, and what I'm about to go into is getting ready to say, who even knows how much of what they were saying they were being genuine about. You got to get into your own word and learn to what it says, and so that you can point out false teachers and false prophets. Okay, so I'm going to do a few parts to this. I don't want it to just be one long video. I'm going to do a few short videos. So I guess the part one of it, we are just going to start off and really kind of get into what these places are, how I got introduced to them, and we'll just see where we go from there. Okay, so back in 2017, that was in my testimony whenever I explained having an overdose and going to a Christian-based recovery program. That's the end of 2017. So, January 2nd is the actual day, January 2nd, 2018. That's the actual day that I walked in the doors of a recovery program called Life Changers Outreach. Now, it is a full Christian-based program, and they had very, very strict rules. Whenever I learned about going, I called. They told me things like what I was allowed to have, what I could bring with me, what kind of clothes I needed, things like that. And as well as what the guidelines and rules were to the place, just your everyday knowledge you need of it. A few days later, my stuff was packed, and me, my older brother, and sister were driving from St. Louis, Missouri to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. It was a long drive, and man, even though I knew I was going to get sober, let's be honest, I brought drugs with me and I was high the whole time. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, brother and sis, if you didn't know about that. There it is. But that's the kind of person I was back then. That's the kind of man I was before Jesus came into my life. But anyway, so we'll get back to this. So basically, you're allowed to show up. I brought a suitcase. They told me to bring 10 sets of clothes, some outfits. They also told me to bring Long Johns, thermals to wear in cold weather. We would be working outside, doing things like that, and would need them. Bring work boots, bring, hygiene stuff, shower shoes, just your everyday list of stuff. But you were, no matter what your diagnosis was, you're not allowed to bring any psychiatric medication, nothing of the sort, no phones. If you were a nicotine user, no more nicotine. You had to quit nicotine. I mean, everything. Anything you put in your body that is not food or you would die without, you can't have it at this place. So, it's a very, very strict place. But, I don't want to have too much scrutiny on the rules right away, because those rules right there were put in place to protect the people in the recovery program. So, that's cool. You're going to a program to get sober. You're not meant to have full access and be able to make all these decisions. A lot of your decisions are meant to be really taken out of your hands, and you're just supposed to follow a schedule and get in the habit of living a normal life again without doing all these things. Clear your head. Remember what it feels like to wake up and make your bed and take care of yourself again. Like, believe it or not, these are things that addicts forget and don't remember how to do whenever they get back into the real life. Some of them really don't even know how to do it from the jump, and that's why they end up where they are. Addicted. Life is hard. Nobody taught them anything. They were given a rough, hand to get to go, and they just never really had a chance. I show up to this place January 2nd. Now, this is Tennessee. It is freezing cold, probably, I don't know, 10 degrees, 12 degrees when I arrive in the mountains. Plenty of places in the world are way colder, but still, fairly cold place. I don't remember the day that I got there, like the day of the week, but I spent a couple days there. I was withdrawing really, really bad. Probably needed to be in like a medically assisted detox or something, but I was there and I figured, you know what, dude, this is it. Maybe this is just what you deserve from using. You need to go through these withdrawals. So I went through the withdrawals, and, my very first day there, they were pulling me into the office, accusing me of having drugs on me, because I was still pretty high from the day before. But it was a different environment, and it took a whole lot of, I knew I was going to have to get used to it. And the rules, it was a big change. But it's a weird thing to even start this series, because on one hand, this place gave me, helped me find recovery, helped me find my faith, taught me a lot about the Bible, gave me a lot of opportunity to start. But at the same time, there is a lot of shady stuff that happens there. And if it was really Christ-centered, I wouldn't do this. But it's not Christ-centered anymore. And it's really not even centered around helping the people that they advertise they're there to help. So you got to understand that these places, they are not clinical. There's no state licensing to them. Very simply, what they are 501c3. That is a nonprofit organization. And the owner of this place, Life Changers Outreach, and his wife, they started this one. They're not the first one to do a model like this. There's been a ton of models and a ton of crazy things to happen in other similar places like this. So this is not the first time by far, but it is something that keeps going. And the fact that it is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it is a religious organization, a Christian organization, at least as how they describe themselves and what they call themselves when they're filling out their paperwork and everything. So they've got this 501c3 nonprofit. You don't need anything special to have that. And if you're not passing out medication and doing these things, you don't need registered nurses on site. You don't need need to meet certain state regulations, So they're really able to kind of skate under the radar with these things. Now, so I get here and you're not supposed to really be doing anything but, just working on your recovery when you get there. But, 4 or 5 months in, they start putting you in charge of things, or at least giving you jobs, giving you responsibilities. You got to start building yourself up again and get in the habit of working and keeping a schedule, So they start to give you some responsibility. Well, they're very, very rigid, and basically they refuse to do anything like that, at least according to the rules, until 6 months. The rules say 6 months you're not supposed to really leave for work details. You're supposed to be heavy in that classroom, studying the Bible, in the counselor's office, places like that, working on your recovery. That is the goal of the first 6 months, at least according to the handbook and the rules, yada, yada, yada. But that's not really how it happens. So me, I'm no genius, but I'm a fairly smart guy. And when you got 70 men that, some of them come off the streets, some of them, it's Tennessee, so some of them are, hillbillies coming from the mountains. They're great people. I've never left. I love Tennessee, but it just is what it is, But, sorry, everybody. I didn't mean to offend you. But anyway, so I guess I stood out amongst them as, like, somewhat well spoken, knew what I was talking about, knew my way around things like stereo audio equipment. I could help them with all their stage stuff, as far as when we would do services, So I ended up being very, very early on, when I shouldn't have been, promoted to a position that I never should have been in the first place, at least according to the rules. I had the ability to do it. I had the skill to do it. And I even had the desire to do it. I wanted to do something like that. For me, idle hands, devil's playground, So keeping busy was good. At least I thought so. But the thing is 3 months before I was ever supposed to be given a position like that, they're like, hey man, you're a pretty smart guy. We need somebody in this position. Why don't you take it? And I'm like, okay, sure, I like to prove myself. Give it to me. I'll do it. So I started doing all the audio. They ended up putting me in charge of all the audio, all the video for the churches. Then they put me in charge of all the live streaming, as well as far as monitoring it during the live streaming process. Anytime that they were live taping any of their Bible college classes to any of their other campuses, me and another gentleman named Clinton, we were responsible for setting that up and making sure everything ran without a hitch, and we were good at it. And because I was good at it, and me and him worked together as such a good team, at 6 months, they again decided, hey, he needs an assistant. Why don't we stick you in there with him, since you're already working with him all the time? You got a license. He doesn't have a license. He needs to go to the bank for us and go here and go there all the time. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. This gets me out of all this stuff where I'm just sitting around in a classroom. I'm not, you're not able to talk while you're in the classroom at all. If you get caught talking like twice in a week, you don't get phone calls home. So I was ready to get out of there anyway. Give me some responsibility. Let me do something, please. So I took it. But again, these are things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I didn't stop and see these signs early. I just looked at it as like, cool, man, they trust me. It's a blessing. I was happy to do it. But in retrospect or hindsight, I should probably seen, man, these are red flags. These are leaders that are breaking foundational rules so they can get, errands ran, and it be easy on everybody. But you don't want to hold me too responsible for looking out for red flags like that at that point, because the truth is like, I just came out of years and years of drug addiction. I'm just happy not to be high and withdrawing every day at that point, and that people trust me again, and I'm not isolated away from the world and just always ashamed of myself, So give me the responsibility. Let me do these things. Let me prove myself. I'm happy with that. And I didn't mind doing it. But another thing about these places is that there's no state funding that comes to them, nothing like that. They're not privately funded neither. So how they are funded is every weekend, every man, woman that is a student in this program, so fresh drug addicts that just come up off the streets, out of jail, all these different places, they're sticking 5 to 10 of them in vans and sending them out different directions all across the country to do fundraisers. To be honest, a lot of you have probably seen them. They sit out in front of Walmarts, Dollar Generals, gas stations. They've got tables set up. They have bracelets, necklaces, t-shirts, all this stuff that is cheaply bought from China or cheaply made there or something similar, and it's a racket. What they do is they send you out, and they've got $2 t-shirts, and they've got all these people that are fresh off the streets, and so this is a requirement of you to stay there, is you have to go out and fundraise. Now again, me being who I was, wanted to prove myself, this and that, I took this opportunity to go out and fundraise and, ran with it. I wanted to do well. And, again, you got to travel all over the country. I wasn't traveling regularly before this. I was doing drugs. So, just being honest, guys. I hate to be so blunt, but it just is what it is. So now at this point in my life, I'm going to Louisiana every other weekend, Florida, all these different places. And the better you do on your fundraisers, the better dinners you get, the better hotels you get to, no, not hotels, just the better dinners you get. The hotels are always crappy. So again, they send you out here, you stand at these tables for 12 to 14 hours a day, and we were trained. Like every Tuesday, we'd be trained how to do fundraising for the new guys, just to refresh the people that have been there. And the idea is you just don't miss people that walk out the door. You need to try to talk to everybody, and you pull them in, and you're just like, hey, here's some information. We're so-and-so from this place here. It's a Christian-based recovery program. Men and women are housed here for a year at no charge, where we could get counseling, this and that. And there's no charge to it, and you're able to get help for free. This is right in the middle of the opioid epidemic and all this, so everybody knows somebody that is struggling with addiction, or at least has dealt with it, or they've lost somebody. So you can just imagine how many people were, even if they couldn't give a lot, they're just like, yeah, here's my change. Here's a couple bucks. Or, yeah, what do you got at the table? And then the crazy thing is these are Christians too. So you would get people that would just walk up to your table and they would be like, "How you doing, young man?" Start talking to you, ask you why you're out there, what you're doing, what this is about, what you believe. There's always people trying to test you and stuff. Um, but man, I've been given $2,000 and $3,000 donations in cash on the spot there. So like, people believe in this and they want to help. It wasn't usually something, I mean, yeah, there were long, hot, hard days, but usually they weren't bad days while you were doing it. But it's every weekend. You didn't get no breaks. If you were sick, you slept in the van. You're going to these crack house hotels that you can literally knock on the next door and you just made 2 to 3 grand cash at some random store at a fundraiser, and there's nothing but little sheets that you're filling out as accountability forms, so you can really do what you want with the money. And the only thing out there protecting you from doing anything you shouldn't be doing is the prospect of coming back and getting drug tested. But truth is it was very, very rare for you to actually come back and get drug tested. Unless they suspected you doing something crazy, they weren't really drug testing weekly like they should have been. Now, they would do it just to keep people on their toes, pull some people in, but it was very random, no consistency to it. Should have been, everybody gets drug tested every weekend when you walk through the door. Everybody's crap gets searched every weekend when you walk through the door. And those were the guidelines, but the thing is there's no officials that are there. It is all recovered addicts that have gone through this same program or another, and that have decided, because either they didn't have nowhere to go or they just weren't ready to walk back out and go into the world in their recovery yet. So you had an opportunity to stay in staff housing, which is just the same housing you're in, but different rooms. And all they are is random rented houses where they're 3 and 4 and 5 bedroom houses. And what they'll do is they will shove 5, 6, 7 people in these freaking rooms, get bunk beds, literally twin bunk beds, and shove as many of them as they can into every room in this house that can fit them, basements, whatever, to get as many people as they can get here to send as many groups fundraising as they can every weekend. Now, when I say that this place made a crap ton of money, I am not even playing. So again, I told you I start working with the gentleman Clinton in his office. Clinton he was basically administrative director. That's what I'll call the position. But this man had his hands in everything. There was not a thing on that campus, in that office, that he didn't know what was going on. He knew everything. From the time I was in there at 4 months with him, I was in there looking at budgets every day, looking at all this crazy stuff, and I didn't realize what I was looking at yet up to that point. But by the time I'm 6 months deep into this place, I know what payroll is getting paid out every week, what money goes to maintenance, what money goes here, what money goes there. And then not only that, is at 6 months, then they said, "Alex, how about you go into Money Count with Clinton?" So Money Count is every Monday when these fundraising crews come back. Well, we roll back in on a Sunday, drive all night, 6-7 hours after fundraising, 12 to get back to church, because you had to be back to church on Sunday. You could not miss. Unless you were 15-16 hours out, then they would say just get a hotel that second night as well, wake up somewhere, go to church, and drive back after church. That was stay out crew. Did that a lot too. But anyway, they'd send 50 crews out. 50 crews would come back, drop off a money bag for each day. So if you're out there for 2 days, it's 2 money bags accrue. If you're out there for 3 days, which a lot of them did 3 days because that's how you got commission paid, bonus pay is fundraising. You got a really crap salary. It was $300 a week salary as an employee at this place, depending on your position, but that's where it started. And then you got paid fundraising bonuses for going out there and doing a good job on fundraiser, making money. You hit a goal, you get paid a $50 or $100 bonus depending on what type of fundraiser you're at. And then every $100 you earn after that, you commission 10%. So that's basically how your fundraising bonuses went. And then that would be paid out on the following week's paycheck. So, they were allowing you to make money off of it, but also they were doing very corrupt things like if you would break rules as an employee, not a person in the rehab, but as an employee, they would fine you out of your pay. They'd be like, nope, you did this. We're going to take $100 out of your pay, which is illegal. You're not able to do that, but they did, they just did what they wanted. But this place, I very quickly learned, because when I got there, I was so ready to be sober that I overlooked so much. And not so much that is, it was a good place at first, because what I went there for is what I was, actually doing every day. I was trying to become a better man. I was trying to stay sober, and I was trying to learn more about my faith. I just found my faith a month before I walked into this place, but so I genuinely loved it at first, but doing money count, you'd take every one of them bags and we would have to take the accountability sheets that were in the bag that you would do money count every hour on your fundraiser and write stuff down. We'd take that, the accountability sheet, we count the cash, then we take the cash, put it in a total pile, then we go and count the total pile and make sure it adds up to what we counted originally. Then we take those accountability sheets, add all that up, and make sure that it matches the cash amounts and the credit card amounts that come in. Now, remember, this is all untaxed money because this is a 501c3 nonprofit and it's a Christian organization. So it's a nonprofit Christian place. They're not paying no taxes. So this place legitimately, when I got there first, they were bringing anywhere from $63,000 to $75,000 a weekend. Now, as me and a few people there moved up and got into employment and in certain positions like that, there were weekends that we went out and we would bring in $80,000 in cash and 20 grand in credit cards. There were weekends we would go out and bring in 100 grand in cash and like 10, 15 grand in credit cards. The most we ever did was like 115 grand in a weekend. But when you go out 52 weekends a year, and that's what you're bringing in, like, do the math. That's a lot of money and a lot of untaxed money. And not only a lot of untaxed money, but a lot of untaxed accounted for money. See, one thing that I noticed very quickly was that as Monday came around and we would be in there doing money count, people would walk in from the church across the street, grab up a unaccounted for money bag that hasn't been counted, nothing yet, and say, this is set aside for me. I was supposed to come grab this. I'm not supposed to ask questions. I'm low level. They probably didn't even think I realized what was happening at the time. But I'm like, what is happening here? Didn't say nothing, just was obedient and did it. But that's the kind of manipulation that they did, is they would preach things like obedience, and they would say, oh, it's not blind obedience, but you do what you're told, and if you do what you're told and something happens, you're just doing what you're asked to do. It was the person that told you to do it that's going to get in trouble. So that by teaching you things like that, it's basically, and not even just teaching it, but requiring it through the rules, is it's forcing you to just do what you're told and never put your foot down and never speak up whenever you shouldn't. You're going to lose privileges if you do. You're going to get your pay fined if you're an employee. I mean, there was a ton of just wild manipulation and wildly illegal things that they would do with that money. And not only was it the people coming over from the church, but it was people that the founders, they were coming in, snatching bags before it was accounted for. Coming in, grabbing $1,000 here, $1,000 there before it's accounted for. Paying for things straight out of it before it's accounted for. And because they're 501c3s, there's probably 50 of them out here in East Tennessee and on the East Coast, probably 200 now, because people realized what a racket this was and they started building them up. And so, man, you can make a ton of money, but now they're on every street corner. They're everywhere. But you've got, within these places, is you've got fresh recovered addicts. Good intentions they may be, they're in there and they have no real knowledge on some of this stuff. They're green, they don't know much, and they're teaching people to be regular, good people, good, productive citizens in the world, when the truth is they don't know themselves. And what they're doing is they're teaching bad doctrine to keep you in place, to keep you manipulated, to keep you going out every weekend. They say things when people want to leave. Man, the effort that they put into pulling you into an office, if you're somebody that's a good fundraiser, to talk you out of leaving, whatever they can do if you're a good fundraiser. And on that same note, if you're breaking rules, countless times kids would come, they'd snatch money and go in one of these stores, buy a beer and get drunk because they were alcoholics. Or they'd buy drugs at the hotel and get high. There were overdoses all the time, It was wild. And if they were, they didn't stand out, they weren't a good fundraiser, this, that, then, the rules were the rules then, and you had to go. There was no fighting policy, no using policy. Those were both just absolutely no breaking those rules. You break them, there's no second chance, you're gone. And people did it regularly. It was wild. And they just let it happen if they were somebody that was earning regularly for them. I think that's where I'm going to stop now. I really just wanted to give you a kind of, at least an idea where this was going. I'm going to map out more of a day-to-day routine of what people did then, a weekend routine of how they went, how things ran, some of the people that were there, the departments that were there, the type of things that they were teaching, and then probably either the third or fourth part of this, I am going to go into the devastating effects of these false teachings, the consequences of teaching these things that are not real, not true, that are not really coming from the Word and from God. And there are heavy consequences of that, especially coming from a place where everybody there is using or comes from using dangerous drugs. So I'm going to leave this off there, but man, I'm having a lot of fun talking about this. I want people to know what was going on, and I think people need to know because they're giving their money over to it and they're sending their family members to these places and they're being lied to, used, manipulated, and honestly, a lot of times people are coming out of these places more messed up than when they come in. So, thank you guys, anybody that watched this, I appreciate it. And I'll put the next one out in probably 3 to 4 days. We'll see how it goes. I work a lot. So, but I appreciate y'all watching. Like, subscribe if you want. And I'm going to continue to try to put content out like this, as well as to try to rectify some of these mistakes that this place is causing and a nation of fatherlessness. Remember, my goal for this page is always for men and Christians. Teach you how to be a godly man that leads your household in kindness, love, and affection. But you're going to set healthy boundaries for your family. But you're also going to protect them from the evils of the outside world. So y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next video.